Today we're going to be looking at a review for sections 3.1 to 3.3 in your packet. So everything that we've worked on so far in class, we are now going to work on some review problems over them so you can prepare for your quiz. Alright, so in your notes, what I want you to do is I want you to describe the similarities and differences in the solutions in both of these. However, you don't necessarily have to solve them. Use what prior knowledge you know about an equation and an inequality. What are the similarities? What are the differences? Go ahead and pause the video and write down some similarities and differences. Remember, you don't have to write a ton. 1 or 2 will work for both. Hopefully, you remember from equations and inequalities that they're going to have at least one of the same answer. They're going to have at least one same answer. You also solve these the same. If you remember about differences though, the inequality will have more than one solution. Whereas the equation only has one. Hopefully those are some of the similarities and differences that you came up with. Alright, what I want you to do now is I want you to graph x is less than or equal to 6 on a number line. Go ahead and pause the video and graph it. Alright, now I'm going to show you what this graph should look like. This is what you should have. So we go ahead and graph it, and we're going to plot some points. So let's see. 2. Alright, so x is less than or equal to 6. So we're going to find 6. And we are going to make a closed circle because 6 is included in our inequality answer. And then we want everything less than x. So everything less than x is those numbers smaller than 6. So we're going to draw our line pointing to the numbers less than 6. Hopefully, you have the same graph. Alright, Hannah needs to buy shampoo and soap at the store. Shampoo costs $7.97 per bottle, and soap costs $4.79 per package. Hannah took $45 with her to the store. All you need to do is write an inequality that could be used to find the number of soap packages she can buy. So you need to label your variable as S for soap packages. Go ahead and write the inequality now. Pause the video and write. So hopefully you remember from what we've learned previously in class that the maximum amount she could spend is $45 because that's how much she took. So that is our maximum value. However, she could spend that $45, which is why 45 is greater than or equal to the amount she could spend. We know we're trying to find the inequality based on the number of soap packages, so we just have to have one shampoo bottle. Okay? So $7.97 plus $4.79 S for the soap bottles. And there is your inequality. Hopefully you found the same one. Now we need to solve this inequality and graph it. Go ahead and pause the video, solve it on your own, and graph it, and then check to make sure we have the same answer. Alright, when you were to solve this, you should have distributed the 1/2 to both of the numbers inside the parentheses. So a half times negative 4x will be negative 2x. Half times negative 6 is going to be negative 3. Plus 7, which is less than 12. Our next step is to combine our like terms. Notice we don't have to add 3 to both sides. It's already on the same side. We're just going to combine the two of them. So negative 2x, negative 3 plus 7 is a positive 4. And that is less than 12. Now we're going to move the 4 to the other side. So we have negative 2x is less step is going to be divide by -2. And when doing that, we now get x is greater than -4. Hopefully you realize that when you divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality sign. So now we're going to go ahead and graph that. Okay, so we are going to find -4, which is where our point is. It is an open circle, meaning it's not including -4, and x is greater than that. So we want all the values bigger than -4. Remember, negative numbers, the ones that are smaller, are actually larger. They're getting closer to 0. So we want to point our arrow towards 0, towards the positive numbers, which are getting bigger. All right, go ahead and solve this inequality on your own. This is a compound inequality. You can do it in 2 ways. You can either separate it, so you can separate it, you can separate it completely into 2, and these are the 2 you can separate it. If you separate it like that, you'll have 2 separate inequalities. Otherwise, you can solve it straight like this. Go ahead and solve it and graph it, and then check your work. Alright, first I'm going to show you how to solve it if we just straight solve it. So the first thing we need to do is we need to distribute our negative. You can pretend like there's a -1 right there. So if we distribute our negative, we're given -5x minus 3 minus 2, which is less than 1. Remember, we need to combine our like terms. -3 minus 2 is -5. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add 5 to both sides. We are solving this just like we would in the equation. Whatever we do in the middle, we have to do it on both sides of the inequality signs. Since there's 2, we have to do it twice. So then we have 1 is less than or equal to -5, which is -5x, which is less than 6. Then we're going to divide by -5. And what do you remember about when we divide by -5? We have to flip the inequality sign. But there are 2 here, aren't there? Well, we have to flip both of them. So we have -1/5 is greater than or equal to x, which is greater than -6/5. And you can see that because the smaller negative number is the bigger number. So if we went ahead and graphed that, we have 0, -1, -2, and -3. Now, -1/5 is pretty small. It's almost to 0. So our -1/5 is right here. And that is a closed circle, meaning it's including -1/5. Okay, and x is smaller than that, so our arrow is going to get smaller. We're going towards the bigger numbers. -6/5 is a little bit bigger than 1, and it is an open circle. And x is bigger than that, so we want all the bigger numbers. So it is all, so this solution would be any number between -1/5 and -6/5. Hopefully you have the same answer. Alright, the last one that I want you to do is I want you to graph these 2 inequalities. Go ahead and pause the video and graph these, and then check your work. Alright, now that we're graphing this, hopefully when you've noticed that it said or, you know that these 2 inequalities are going to go in opposite directions. So if we go ahead and graph x is less than 2, less than or equal to 2, we know that's a closed circle. And less than is everything smaller. And then we have x is greater than 3, which is an open circle and everything bigger. Hopefully, you got the state graph out. Alright, if you have any questions, write them down. Okay, write them down throughout the video, write them down. The last thing you need to do before you turn the video off is you need to explain why the inequality x plus 5 is less than x plus 4 has no solutions. Write down a sentence or two why that could not have any solutions. Alright, if you look at this inequality, you'll notice that the x values, there's an x value on both. X values, we know, no matter what the variable is, or how many you have of the same variable, you know that that variable has to be equal to the same thing. So that x has to equal the same number. Well, one side of the inequality as adding 5, and the other side is adding 4. There is no solution where you can have the same value for x, where if you add 5 to it, it's going to be smaller than where if you add 4 to it. If the inequality sign was facing the other direction, like that, the solution would be true, and you could have many solutions of how this could work. However, in this case, the way the inequality is written, there are no solutions because there is no possible way for you to have an x value that's the same where 5 is less than 4. You can also solve this algebraically if you have x plus 5 is less than x plus 4. And you subtract an x from both sides, you have 5 is less than 4. Well, we know that's not true. So no matter what, 5 is never going to be less than 4. Write down any questions you have. We will be doing a review in class the next day, and then you will have your quiz.